And what Chagall found was it didn't matter where you got DNA from. You get it from a person, you get it from a doggy, you get it from a mushroom, you get it from toe fungus, you get it from anywhere. The amount of adenine in that sample always equals the amount of thymine in that sample. And the amount of guanine in that sample always equals the amount of cytosine in that sample. Doesn't matter where it comes from, the amount of adenine is always equal to thymine, the amount of guanine is always equal to cytosine. All right. Now, if you've heard of anybody, this is the people you've heard of. My guess is all of you had heard of Watson and Crick before. You may not have heard of anybody else. Unless you're, a pretty devoted feminist. Feminists know all about Frank. And that's really only since the early and mid-90s. But what Watson and Crick decided to do, Watson and Crick are an American and an Englishman. Watson is the American and Crick is the Englishman. And what they decide to do is they decide they're going to use models. They're going to build models using the molecules they know exist in the structure, and they're going to use it to come up with a reasonable model of what DNA looks like. What's the problem with that approach? There's one fatal flaw in this methodology.
It implies that it's going to look like something you already know about?
Yep, it assumes that you know what you're doing. Think about it. If I came in and said, I'm going to put you in 4 groups, and here's 4 boxes with 100 pieces in it. The first group to build me a falafel in 10 minutes gets A pluses in the course. Go.
And how's
You
a
kind of
falafel?
stuck. You don't know what you're building. How do you build one? It's kind of what happens with Watson and Crick. Here's my model, Watson. You like it? Oh, Crick is beautiful. Is it right? I don't know. Build another one. It's really hard to create physical models of something that you don't know what it is. Isn't doing that, if you're into doing jigsaw puzzles, isn't it really hard to do that jigsaw puzzle if you don't have a picture of what you're trying to make in the first place?
Yes.
I have an older brother who used to love puzzles when he was a kid. And that was always the first thing he would do, was throw the box away. I want to know what it looks like. I want to try to do it without. About half the time he wanted what it was supposed to look like. Sometimes it was like, no, I know this piece fits here. And then you'd always see him a day later in the trash. Box. But their problem was nothing to test the theories against. They're building models, but they don't know what's right. Well, it turns out there comes a time when Watson is able to observe Franklin's X-ray diffraction pattern and then uses that information to rearrange their model. Now the challenge here is all in the word observed. And again, don't get mad at me, I didn't make any of this. I didn't say any of these things. There are 2 versions of how Watson was able to observe the X-ray diffraction pattern. Watson's version is he met Franklin at a conference in London on DNA. She came up after his speech, all excited to meet him with a big problem. She thought she had discovered the structure of DNA, but she didn't know what to do next because she was just a girl. And she didn't really know how to get it published, and she didn't think people would believe her because she's just a girl. And Watson was a big, strong man, so she wanted to give him the X-ray diffraction so humanity would have the information because women only care about others. And Watson was the smart man who would know how to do this and make it all work and could handle the pressure of the the fame that comes with it, et cetera, et cetera. Again, don't throw things at me. These are his words, not mine. Franklin has a very, very different story. She does agree that they met at a conference. That's about where it ends. She says Watson hit on her, she told him to go jump in a lake, and she went on about her day. She went home to her research lab, which was in London, to find Watson in her lab. Got mad at him, threw him out, went on about her day. A couple of days later, she's going through her X-ray diffraction materials. And one of the things about Franklin is she's one of those very fastidious people. Absolutely everything has to go exactly in the right place at all times, no matter what. I used to have someone in my life like that we used to call mom. You know, everything must be exactly so or the world is going to end. Well, that's Franklin. She's going through her X-ray diffractions. She's got 24, 25, 26, 28, 29, 30. X-ray diffraction 27 is missing. She asks Wilkins about it. He doesn't know anything. Goes on about her day. It's not until Watson and Crick publish their findings that Franklin understands, because there's a picture in the publication of X-ray diffraction number 27. So, of course, Franklin is upset, writes to all the major journals of how he was dishonest, and tells anybody who will listen how she didn't give him anything, and he's taking advantage of her work, etc., etc. Watson's response to that is, and again, this is him, not me, is, well, you know how women are. You know, she gave it to me fair and square, and now she's mad that I'm getting, you know, the notoriety, and she's jealous, so she's just pitching a fit. You know, that's why women shouldn't be researchers. That's why women need to stay home in the kitchen, see what happens when they get involved in these things. His words, not mine. But in 1952 world, if those are the two versions of the story that are out there, who gets believed? Watson. Because especially in 1952 world, 99.999999% of researchers are men. Again, it's why you don't let those hysterical females into the lab, because they can't handle it. Well, it turns out, this is Watson and Crick with their model. This is Watson here, that's Crick there. In 1953, Watson and Crick published their findings. And the first piece of their findings is that DNA is a double helix, twisted around itself. It's an original thought. They come up with this idea of base pairing, which says the reason that adenine and thymine always equal, and guanine and cytosine always equal, is because they're held together by weak hydrogen bonds. We call that base pairing. That's why they're equal, because A is always going to bond with T, and G is always going to bond with C. And then this last piece won't make sense now. It will later, but I want to finish the story before I come back to it. Because they also do notice, this is the one part of it that's actually unique to them, is that the strands are complementary and anti-parallel. And again, I'm going to show you a picture that explains that after I finish the story. Anti-parallel meaning one side goes from 5' to 3', and the other side goes from 3' to 5'. And part of the challenge, while the debate is going back and forth between Franklin and Watson, is the role of Wilkins. Because the very first letters that Franklin sends out, Wilkins co-signs. Shortly after that, Watson and Crick agree to put Wilkins' name on their paper when they publish. And from then on, Wilkins sides with them. Yeah, she was a little high strung, you know, she gets agitated, that's the way she was, etc. All right, so like I said, we're gonna finish the story, then we'll go back to this idea of complementary